Update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to do Thanksgiving dinner at my parents without my wife? Original post. I, 30 male, feel stupid for even asking. My sister, 29, and my wife, 34 female, did not have the best history. Before we met, my wife was my sister's landlady, and she was renting the room at the back of my wife's house 6 years ago. She got evicted less than 4 months after moving in because my sister did not pay her rent at all. Then she was taken to court for damages that costed way more than she put down on a security deposit. My sister did end up having to pay, but basically hated my wife for this. We met after this all went down, and I went to go pick up my sister's stuff she left behind that my wife was decent enough to not have thrown out yet. We started chatting and really hit it off. Started dating. A year and a half later, she got pregnant with our son. Now we are happily married, but my sister never took it well. We weren't as close before all this, but after becoming a traitor in her eyes, we didn't talk much. She hasn't even met my son, who's 3. My parents are really trying to push for us all to have a family Thanksgiving at their place. My sister never wanted to go because I'd be there with my wife, and she didn't want to see me. My parents never pushed it before because they didn't think my sister was being fair, considering the issues she has with my wife for all things she did herself. This year, they feel different though, since my sister broke up with her boyfriend of 6 years, and it's her first holiday without him. She, however, doesn't want to see my son or wife, so that's why they're asking if they'd be left at home. My wife doesn't have any other family, and I don't want her and my son missing out because my sister doesn't want them there. It's not a problem for me to miss out on dinner with my wife so my sister could have the company, so I'm just staying home with my own family. My sister is blowing it out of proportion because she wants me there. But I'm being an a-hole because she wants the whole family there. Parents are taking her side here because it's been a difficult year losing her boyfriend and job. So she just wants one family dinner for Thanksgiving. I get it, it's been tough for her. But I'm just having a hard time seeing how it's selfish or being inconsiderate to not want to exclude my family. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a-hole. It's been 6 years and your sister was at fault. Time to grow up and drop the grudge. And the fact that she would hold it against your toddler is ridiculous. If she wants her whole family there, she needs to accept that your wife and child are family, whether she likes it or not. Family doesn't always get along. She needs to deal with that or not expect you there. It's how I feel too. My wife was the wronged party and she's over it now. I'm sure because my sister was the one who had to pay out of pocket, she feels differently about it. But still, like you said, it's been 6 years. Your parents have clearly babied your sister her whole life if they've allowed this to go on this long. This should have been nipped in the bud years ago. But for some reason, none of you put your foot down with her tantrums. Your responsibility is to your wife and child. End of story. If your parents are going to act this irrationally and bend to your sister's hysterics, it may be time to draw a line in the sand. This is one of those times when taking no side is actually taking a side when one party's so clearly in the wrong. For the past few years, they have told her that if she doesn't want to be around my family, then she can be excluded from family events. This is the only time they want to do whatever to make her happy because of what's been going on. Your sister and parents can't have it both ways. If parents are wanting to prioritize sister this year, then they need to commit to that. That means accepting Thanksgiving for them this year is just parents and sister. But they cannot demand you pretend you don't have your own immediate family now, your wife and son. They're literally demanding you disrespect your wife and child by pretending they don't exist, and that your parents and sister are still your only immediate family. That's unfair and unhealthy, and hardly going to help your sister get over her breakup. Call your parents on speaker. Ask your mom how she would feel if a couple years into her marriage, your dad had left her to celebrate Thanksgiving with a 3-year-old toddler alone, while he celebrated with his real family. Ask your dad if he would treat his wife like that. If this is the kind of husband he was raising you to be, and then hang up so they can think about it. Not an a-hole, although your sister is. She's mad at your wife because she didn't pay her rent and got evicted 6 years ago. I guess she's had a rough year, but let it go already. If the whole family isn't there, it's your sister, not you. Good luck. Not only didn't she pay rent for 4 months, she also apparently managed to damage the property so much the security deposit didn't cover it. That means that it wasn't a few smaller things, but some mid-sized to major damage. Within 4 months. Not a hole and sister should get over herself. She was in the wrong 100% back then. And now for the update. Well, of course I didn't follow along with her ridiculous request. I wasn't about to leave my wife and child at home to have dinner with people who didn't want my family there. It pissed me off like you can't imagine. We had fights prior to the dinner because I couldn't believe my parents were fine with excluding my son from time to spend with them. It bothered me the more I thought about it. Then there went my sister calling, crying that I'm a piece of trash for not being there for her. Honestly, it was so irritating. We went back and forth. I just remember telling her to grow up and stop being a spoiled you-know-what. And, well, she didn't call after that one. We stayed home to have our own Thanksgiving. My son kept asking where Grandma and Grandpa are. I wasn't about to tell him the real reason that we weren't going with them, so we only told him they're a little sick so we can't go. He still wanted to talk to them. The video chatted for a while. Then you could hear my sister in the background. Then they were suddenly in a hurry to end a call. I'm sure she didn't know they were talking to us. I tried not to let that anger me too much so we could all be in a good mood. To the person who suggested a nice pajama Thanksgiving dinner, well, we followed through on that and it was pretty relaxing. My son decided he wanted to go all out with his dinosaur PJs. It was a lovely time. We made a pillow fort after dinner, then my son fell into a food coma. So me and my wife had some alone time too. This was so much better than any dinner with my parents and someone who has no respect for my family. It really left me with a completely different view of them. I know she really is going through something difficult, and my parents are trying to help, but it hurts knowing that I wanted to toss my family to decide to make her happy. For that reason, we won't be spending Christmas with them either. Which has been a whole thing too, but oh well, they did this to themselves. We're taking a little family vacation up to the mountains, so my son can enjoy the snow. Just to do something fun on Christmas so he doesn't focus on the fact that we're not spending it with his grandparents either. I'm from someone who has no contact with my mother. I tell my kids a kids-friendly version of the truth. That way no one else can come along and spin lies and turn them against me. For me, it's been my mom has problems and it makes her mean, and I don't want you guys, my kids, have her to be mean to you. You could explain for Christmas simply that Granny and Pa need to support Auntie right now because she is sad, and Auntie asked to not do celebrations with us this year while she gets better. So we are going to do our own fun things. Sure, it's nicer than what is happening, but at least kids knows. This is a really good explanation. Thank you. It's hard to explain these adult situations to a little kid, and we don't want to necessarily lie to him, but also he obviously can't know what the real reason is. My mom was estranged from her family. Before I was old enough to understand the details, it was always Mama's family are mean to people, and we are worried they will be mean to you. We promise to tell you when you're older more. And then when I was older, she told me the real reason. Just like your son will one day need to know the real reason if this spoiling of your sister continues. Even if it's watered down to, my sister is not nice to your mom or you, and my parents supported it. Good for you. I don't understand how in the world your sister expected you to dump your family for her. That is totally ridiculous. It really is, honestly. After all these years to still have that grudge over a situation that was no one's fault but hers. Great post. Sounds like you have a healthy marriage and know where your priorities are. Congrats on your traditions. Do they make dino PJs in adult sizes? Preferable Christmas themed. I may have to try that. Now for the last story. Update. Am I the a-hole for calling out my mother-in-law at her daughter's memorial service for implying her daughter's death was sadder because she wanted children? Original post. My 26 male wife's 26 female younger sister 23 female passed away unexpectedly. It was shocking for all of us, and I've just been trying to be supportive while processing my own grief. At her memorial service, I overheard a relative who had lost her only child tell my mother-in-law that while my sister-in-law's death was tragic, at least she had another child. My mother-in-law tried to explain that it wasn't any consolation since her daughters were both unique individuals, but then they got into a borderline argument about it. My mother-in-law then tried to put it to rest by saying, in any case, even if I still have my wife, sister-in-law was my only hope for having grandchildren, since my wife doesn't want any, so I'll always be mourning that missed possibility. For context, my wife and I aren't even child-free. We just don't want to have children until at least our late 30s. It has been a very sore point for her mother, who has made it clear to everyone that she believes we are lying about delaying it, just to avoid discussing it with her. At that point, I interrupted and said it's a very insensitive thing to say about both her daughters, to reduce one's entire value to her openness towards having children, and dismiss another's value for not having children in the near future. My mother-in-law seemed to not even consider my point and was mostly just incensed about how we could even confront her at a time like this. She finally told me she's not in any state to deal with us and left. I later told my wife about it, and she said that even if I was right, that wasn't the time to bring it up, and that she doesn't have any emotional capacity to even care about it at the moment. I feel really guilty for being responsible for creating some new drama right now, but I also think what my mother-in-law said was highly dismissive and that I had to defend my wife right there. Now for the top comments before reading the update. You're the a-hole. Your wife is right. This wasn't the time or place to have this conversation. Your mother-in-law is dealing with incomprehensible grief and isn't in a position to have perfect feelings about things. And while her comments were ugly and mean-spirited, confronting her at her daughter's memorial service was comically inappropriate. You should apologize. And mother-in-law was poked first by the dumb, "Well, at least you have another living child" comment. That was stupid and cruel thing to say at someone's child's funeral. So mother-in-law has the additional mitigation of trying to defend herself against that hurtful comment. Exactly. This conversation never should have happened in the first place. Grief is not a competition, and the person who said that is just as big of an a-hole as Opie. You're the a-hole, and the relative who started the conversation is a massive a-hole. Who the hell says, "Well, you lost one, but hey, at least you've got another"? What? That's so insane. And then for you to be rude to her about your opinions and having children while she's mourning the death of her child? She is absolutely allowed to mourn the fact that she will never get grandchildren from her younger daughter. Who cares if she made some passing comment about not having grandkids? She's allowed to mourn not getting grandkids just as much as you're allowed to not have children. You should have bit your tongue. You were way out of line and so was the relative. She is absolutely allowed to mourn the fact that she will never get grandchildren from her younger daughter. Exactly. She is allowed to want grandchildren and experience grief over the very real chance she may not get to have them. That is absolutely okay. You're the a-hole. The woman had just lost a daughter, and some dumbass was arguing with her about how it shouldn't hurt. In the context of that argument, your mother-in-law was put into a position to say something in the moment she didn't mean. Then you decided to butt in, gang up on her, and call her out at her daughter's funeral? A-hole move. Incidentally, since you were eavesdropping long enough to relay the rest of the conversation, you could have intervened earlier, like when some a-hole was telling your mother-in-law she shouldn't be sad about her daughter's death. It seems pretty callous towards your mother to only get worked up when you did. And now for the update. I should probably explain why I didn't respond to any of the comments. It dawned on me immediately just how awful it was to say what I did, and that I continued thinking I could be right in some twisted way till I saw the answers here. I told my wife straight away how sorry I was for adding to her grief when it should be my duty to be by her side through it. I waited till now to apologize to mother-in-law. I told her I failed her in every way, by not standing up for her when she was told a massively insensitive thing, by misunderstanding what she actually meant, and by causing her that kind of hurt when she hadn't even began to process her mourning, and affirmed that she's the best mother both her daughters could have asked for. We cried together for some time. We talked a lot about my sister-in-law, her life, how difficult and different it's going to be. We had a frank conversation about the future. She said she was sorry how her comment might have come off as, but she really felt upset deep down because she might not get to experience being a grandmother. I didn't really know if it was the right thing to say at the time, but I told her that we both really do want kids, but we want to be richer and in better places in our careers, so we won't have to struggle with balancing parenthood with work and can spend time with them. I even told her we just started saving up for freezing embryos and are hoping to get it done next year. She seemed to be genuinely convinced and comforted and said she's happy we had that talk. I'm really, really grateful for the sub. Without it, I would have probably just sat on my crappy opinions indefinitely until people forgot about it. I wish I didn't need to be told what a a-hole I was. It takes a massive amount of self-awareness to not only realize you were wrong, but also to own up to it with no excuses to the people that you hurt. It sounds like your mother-in-law was comforted by hearing that you and your wife had plans in the future for having kids. I know we are strangers, but damn, I'm proud of you, Opie. I agree. It sounds like the whole ordeal may actually end up strengthening Opie's relationship with mother-in-law, which is probably good for both of them given the circumstances. Also, it sounds like mother-in-law having hope for grandkids again might help at least relieve a small amount of the massive grief she is facing. So happy you recognized and apologized for your poor behavior. Fingers crossed that all goes well for you and your wife on your future fertility journey. Also, very sorry for the loss of your sister-in-law, but thankful that your family's coming together to support one another. OP, this is just really impressive. Thank you for being honest and present for your mother-in-law and your family, and coming back and updating the sub. I am sorry for your family's loss and hope you can all continue to heal and grow together. Update. My husband, 36 male, may have cheated on me, 33 female, with my dead best friend and had an affair baby. Original post. I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute mess, and it only seems to be getting worse. My best friend since elementary school, who I'll call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom after she passed away, who I'll call Alexis. Last month, Alexis showed up on our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him. To answer the inevitable, Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of for why she didn't go for child support. During this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had, so we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. My husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter is probably his, but that it isn't what I think. Almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we just moved into our dream home after I finally finished residency and was set to make real money for once. Alice was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there. I didn't get back until after 3 a.m. The party was winding down. My husband was passed out upstairs, and Alice had already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. My husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night to Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. He showed me some texts he sent his best friend the next day, asking for his advice about him, thinking someone violated him. But if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit at all. I don't know if that's because he cheated, or if Alice did actually force herself on him and this was his trauma response. Honestly, Reddit, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children, and she had never come across as that kind of person. But I've also known my husband for over a decade, and he's not once ever given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy, and I've seen the looks he gets at the gym, and he's never even given more than a glance. What the heck should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here, when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone wanted to sleep with him. I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test before anything is decided on the child's part, but in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Wow, OP, that is a mess. Paternity test for sure. The old text the next day sealed it for me. I think your friend took advantage of your husband. Good luck. This is the story of the day for me. I don't know you or your marriage, but I think I would be inclined to believe and support my husband with the few details you've given. Yep, I would 100% give husband benefit of the doubt, especially if there's no DNA test. Would it be any less different if the genders were reversed? Last thing, which do you think she'd take to the grave? That she had an affair with or she violated your husband? I hadn't thought about that actually. Thank you. That's a good point. She always thought I could do better than him, so if it was an affair, you'd think she would have told me on her deathbed at least. Ask yourself if you honestly believe he would send those messages as a possible future defense. Is he the type of man who would proactively build a defense just in case? Based on what you said here, I'm inclined to side with your husband. Men are never taken seriously when assaulted, and marriages end for coming forward. The fact you kicked him out says you would have automatically believed your friend, and just doing that may doom the marriage. I could never forgive my wife for that if I was in his place. If he was assaulted and told you the next day, would you believe him and ever trust him again? Or would you believe your friend? Her actions show she did something wrong, and his actions show he actively avoided her at all costs from that day forward. The type of work he does involved highly in-depth planning for contingencies. If he did cheat, I think he'd be smart enough to plan a defense, even years back. I truthfully don't know if I would have believed him had he told me the next day. I think part of the reason I'm struggling right now is because I only have his side of the story. I spoke to a friend about it, and she suggested that maybe Alice coming over with her daughter was her attempting to get him to come clean, so she wouldn't have to take the blame for their affair all herself. Mini update. After talking with you, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend violated him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying if only to separate us. You're absolutely right. I was there, in the room while she passed. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she assaulted my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gathered my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated wouldn't do it justice. That it happened only 6 months ago, I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown on me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and slept with my husband, or she betrayed me and assaulted my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her, and be struck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. It was wrong of me to ask him to leave. You're right, though, and as of a few minutes ago, I've righted this wrong. I called my husband, I apologized, told him I believe him, and begged him to come home. He'll be here in half an hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been an off-and-on Reddit user for several years, and sometimes the advice given on subreddits like these can be a bit hit or miss. But today, you guys did good. You've helped me realize not only that I was wrong, and being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I can assure you we'll deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend violated my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in his face, right in front of me. She tortured the man I loved, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. Tomorrow I'm going to take a leave of absence from work, just until we can figure out our next steps and we can get our heads on straight. Thank you, everyone. Now for the full update 7 months later. I've received a lot of messages asking for an update, so I've decided to finally sit down and write one out. As you can imagine, after the mess that was thrust upon us, this update isn't likely to answer any of your questions, only present a few more. I want to start by telling you all that I love and trust my husband. My reaction to ask him for space to think, in retrospect, was wrong, but at the time, I didn't know what to think. It was a combination of losing my best friend again, and also the fear that I was losing my husband that sent me spiraling. Again, it was a mistake to ask him to leave, and I did rectify that in the end. Now for the update. As mentioned in the original post, I did take a leave of absence from work, and we spent a long time just being together, talking, reaffirming our love for one another, and figuring out what to do next. We, of course, spoke with a lawyer, and my husband was very adamant about not having anything to do with the child, but was willing to offer financial support as needed. So we agreed to do a DNA test immediately to prove paternity and then go from there. Didn't know you could buy tests on Amazon, but with only a few weeks processing, it was the easiest path forward since Alexis lives hours away. To everyone's surprise, Alice's daughter is not my husband's. We ended up testing twice, both very, very definitive. The first test we performed ourselves as mentioned, and another after Alexis refused to believe the first test and took my husband to court for child support. For a single second, this whole thing made me second-guess if my husband was violated, that this could have been her way of forcing my husband to admit to an affair. But after talking with Alexis, I don't think that was the plan. Alexis says that Alice told her my husband was the father under strict confidence, demanding that she never ever tell me or my husband. We were only ever to be told if Alexis died, before Alice's daughter was old enough to take care of herself, so that she wouldn't end up in foster care. The only reason Alexis came to us then, instead of keeping that secret, is because Alice's life insurance wasn't being released yet, and she was out of options. She also felt I should know my husband and her daughter had had an affair. This all reaffirms in my mind that Alice did rape my husband, with the expectation of getting pregnant with his child. She obviously had other partners at the time, since one of them fathered her daughter, but no one knows who. It's clear to me that Alice believed it was my husband. I did suggest Alexis upload a sample to Ancestry, see if any matches pop up, but as Alice traveled all over for work, I don't know that anything will ever come of that. In truth, I've washed my hands of the situation. Alice did enough damage, and I don't particularly plan to be around for anymore. My husband and I have gone through a lot of counseling and will likely continue for a while. This whole situation damaged us both. My husband more obviously, and I don't think we'll fully heal for a very long while. To answer a few questions, no, sadly there isn't a hidden diary or texts to explain what the heck was going on. My husband and I are not getting divorced. He understands why I reacted the way I did and has been strong when I was weak before. I've spent the past 7 months being strong while he was weak, so we're considering the whole thing even. We are still madly in love and plan to be together for a long time still. More on this. No, we will not be adopting Alice's child. If she had been my husband's, we would not have been adopting the child. Ultimately, I thank Reddit for setting me straight. There was a massive outpouring of support and corrective advice. To say I got a slap in the face would be a descriptive but apt way to put it. I needed it then, and I thank you for it. To say that you may have saved my marriage is an understatement. I do, however, have some good news. During my leave of absence, while my husband and I rediscovered what makes us love each other the most, I got pregnant. We're expecting our first baby, a girl, in a little over 3 months, and my husband and I are ecstatic. And no, we will not be naming her after my dead ex-best friend. Was someone here going to suggest naming the baby after Alice? No, right? Anyway, congrats OP. Glad you're free of that mess, healing together and have such joy to look forward to. No, I don't think anyone here would have suggested it. However, I haven't told anyone what happened to my husband at his insistence, which I agree with. We've done our best to keep the entire thing quiet. My extended friendship circle will find it weird that we don't name our daughter after Alice, considering our friendship and history, but it's definitely not under consideration now. I'm willing to bet she was jealous of your life and, for a minute, wanted to know what it felt like to be you. So she waited for your husband to be in a vulnerable position, intoxicated and passed out, and took her shot. She probably had random partners to either make her feel less guilty about assaulting him or to try and get pregnant and really take a shot at him, make him believe her kid was his, and maybe he'd kick you out and move her in. She probably told her mom it was your husband's child to save face and not have to say she didn't actually know. She probably figured no DNA test would be done, but even if it was, she wouldn't be here for the fallout. She truly was a crappy human being. I'm so happy for you both that it's not his child. It's bad enough she did that to him, but to have to deal with a child on top of it would be horrible. Enjoy your little one. Hopefully you can all put this behind you now. Honestly, I just think she wanted a child. She was sleeping with multiple people after all. What a mess. They're bringing a baby into the mess though, so it's all good. But it's not their mess anymore, and they're healing. It sounds like their relationship is stable. Second story. The other woman's husband gave me a heads up before taking his wife's affair with my husband public. Update 3 years later. Original post. I feel so stupid. My husband is having an affair with a woman from our rowing club. Her husband reached out to me. He is going to divorce her, and he wanted me to know before he files, instead of me finding out from gossip or people talking. He showed me proof of their affair. I've been married to him for 6 years, with him for 9 years, and we have a 3-year-old. My cousin is a divorce lawyer and said one of the other lawyers she works with will represent me for a reduced price. I never thought I would be getting divorced. I just feel so stupid because I had no idea and thought everything between us was great. Edit. I do appreciate the other woman's husband telling me, but there is an age difference of 15 years. He has a child only 9 years younger than me, and he is not my type. We won't be dating or getting married like some of the posts and DMs I am getting have suggested. Now for the top advice before reading the update. The guy was very empathetic in telling you what was going on. I'm so sorry you're going through that, but it's better that you found out than live more years of deception. Later on, you will find someone who respects and values you. He said he is divorcing her on adultery grounds, since if he can prove it, he won't have to pay alimony. With all that being public, he didn't think it was right that I find out that way. I almost feel worse for him because they have been married for 20 years and have an adult son. I can't imagine how it feels to lose such a long marriage. That is an actually decent guy. In the middle of his world being turned inside out, he still has it in him to not only think of someone else, but to take the action of softening the blow to spare them embarrassment. I think you should file on the grounds of adultery as well. Actions have consequences, and it's time the soon-to-be ex-husband found that out. I'll talk to my lawyer about this, but my cousin told me there is no advantage to me doing this, since alimony isn't a concern in our case. Adultery won't affect the settlement or custody. It's just about the alimony. Obviously, though, I will follow my lawyer's advice. Update 3 years later. It's official. I'm divorced. To summarize what happened, my ex-husband had an affair with a woman from our rowing club. I had been married for 6 years, and we had a 3-year-old. We were more acquainted with the other woman's son at first because he was only 9 years younger than us, and we often saw him around the club. I didn't find out myself. The other woman's husband found out, and he was the one who told me about the affair. He said he didn't want me to find out from gossip at the rowing club. I'll be thankful forever that he told me first. Everything was bad enough without me having to find out through gossip. The other woman had been married for 20 years. Her husband was a doctor, and apparently she didn't have a job. Since her husband had proof of the affair, it meant he wouldn't have to pay her any alimony. I found out that in our state, if there's proof you cheated, you legally can't be awarded alimony. That's why the other woman's husband was so focused on getting proof of the affair. He moved to another state after his divorce. In my case, it didn't matter. My ex-husband and I both worked and earned the same amount, so there would be no alimony for either of us. The affair wouldn't change that. Our assets and custody of our child would be split 50-50 between us. In 12 days, I'm moving into a new place and starting a new job. My ex-husband and the other woman said they wanted to get married, but they fell apart and aren't together. He tried to change my mind about the divorce, but we only talk about our child now. I honestly still can't believe this happened to me sometimes.